Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come here and shed some light on a topic that is not widely known, yet it is being deeply affected by climate change. So I think it's really important for us to stay informed and take action as soon as possible. So thank you so much for your presence here today.
My pleasure.
Well, to begin with, could you explain briefly what the Atlantic Ocean tipping point is and how it could affect us?
Yes, sure. The Atlantic is very special, the North Atlantic, because we have a huge heat transport coming from the south, delivering heat to the northern Atlantic via the ocean circulation. And that is actually 50 times the total heat consumption of humanity, which is delivered by the ocean and released to the atmosphere to the west of Great Britain and south of Greenland and Iceland. And then this heat is brought by the westerly winds into Europe, and this is the reason why in Europe we have a climate that is much milder than is normal for that latitude. And it has been known since the 1960s already that this ocean circulation has a tipping point where when we pass that point, it will basically die. It will, or collapse, as it's sometimes said, although it's not very sudden. It takes decades to wind down when the tipping point is passed. And this concern actually came from paleoclimatology, because we know in Earth history this has happened several times, and these are some of the most dramatic climate changes we see in Earth history.
Well, what you've just explained sounds rather intimidating and almost frightening. So this could lead, I think, to climate anxiety. How do you think we should deal with that, and how should we deliver the message in order for it to be effective rather than provoking this anxiety?
Well, first of all, we have to be aware of these risks that come with climate change, of course, and that is one of several tipping points in the climate system where really bad things happen that are even worse than just the regular increase in extreme events and increase in sea level that we're already observing, as has been predicted for many decades, and it's all happening now. We have to be aware of these because it is important to prioritize getting out of fossil fuels. That is basically the only solution that we have for this. And so it's
to prevent that from happening, no?
To prevent that from happening. And I think climate anxiety actually, to a large extent, comes from the political world not taking enough action. And so naturally people are scared about this situation, and I think one of the best remedies is, first of all, to understand the issues, because the unknown is always more frightening than what you understand. I experienced that myself in the COVID pandemic, for example. I'm not a medical expert, but I read a lot from the medical experts, and understanding the problem, I think, helps rather than having the fear of some unknown thing looming there. And secondly, talking to other people helps against anxiety and becoming active. If you become active with some climate group, go to some demonstrations, etc., then you meet like-minded people with whom you can talk about the issues, and that also helps with dealing anxiety.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, taking action, I think it's the best possible solution for every problem. So I also wanted to ask you, when we think about climate change, what comes to mind is global warming, that is to say, a rise in global temperatures. So a sudden cooling may seem contradictory to many people. So how can we prevent this from fueling climate change denialism?
Well, I think I've been dealing with climate change denialism for at least 30 years, blogging, in social media, and most of these hardcore climate denialists, they cannot be reached by any rational arguments anyway, because they have a closed mind. They're just set in their ideology. And it's the same, you know, we know that from a very basic physics law, the Clausius-Clapeyron law, both droughts and extreme rainfall increase with global warming, but the denialists say, well, when it's drought, they say it's global warming. When it's too wet, they say it's global warming. You can't help these people, but we just have to educate those that have an open mind and that are willing to understand the issues.
Yeah, because I think like those denialists, they find arguments wherever they can to deny it. So there's nothing we can do about it, really.
Yeah, that's true. Just the other day, I saw on X, which is now a total hotbed of denialism,
it's horrible.
that somebody posted, I already learned in school that there were ice ages. Why don't these climatologists know even such simple things? And he's posting this to me, a person who has been working in paleoclimate for 30 years.
And has a degree and everything.
Not only a degree, my group has made some of the major contribution to understanding ice ages. And actually, I also learned already in school in the 1970s what the cause of the ice ages is, namely these Earth orbital cycles. And our climate model in my group, for the first time worldwide actually, was able to simulate all the transitions into ice ages and out of ice ages in the last 3 million years, only driven by these orbital cycles in our climate model. So there is few people who understand more about
like
ice
futile
ages.
Trying to argue with those people, like.
Yeah.
So okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you is that this planet has faced many climate crises. This is not the first one, and I fear it won't be the last one either. So can we learn from past changes in the climate in order to predict possible effects on the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation collapse?
Absolutely. That is why we do paleoclimate modeling, as I mentioned. And we actually also have been in the forefront of understanding the physical mechanisms of these abrupt climate changes that are linked to the Atlantic overturning circulation. These are the Dansgaard-Oeschger events that were first shown in the Greenland ice core data, and the Heinrich events that you can see in sediment data, which have been huge ice sliding events during the last ice age, which diluted the surface waters of the northern Atlantic so much that the water couldn't sink down to create this overturning circulation, and then the overturning circulation collapsed. And that is in a way similar to what is happening now, where the Greenland ice sheet is melting rapidly, adding meltwater to the North Atlantic. And the key there is that the meltwater is fresh water, and so it dilutes the salt content of the ocean water, makes the ocean water lighter, so it stays on the surface and it cannot sink down, which is the driving force of that overturning circulation. And we're absolutely using the experience from paleoclimate to learn about what is ahead in the future. And what those people who often say, well, the climate has always changed, don't get is that that is not reassuring, because that shows how sensitive the climate system is to disturbances. And in the past, the climate system has reacted very strongly to such disturbances in the Earth radiation balance, and it will do that again now that we are changing Earth radiation balance by adding huge amounts of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. CO2 concentration has increased by more than 50% now due to human activity, and is higher than any time in at least 15 million years.
Well, so to wrap this up, I will finally want to ask you, what is your advice to young people who want to take action? Because as I asked you before, how can we fight this anxiety? Your answer has been like to take action, but I think the main problem is that we don't know how.
Well, join with others. I think that is the key advice for taking action. Don't be alone, because then you feel lost and powerless. But if you join with others, whatever Fridays for Future or any other groups that do something about moving politics towards prioritizing climate action, I think that is the right approach.
Okay, well, that will be all the questions. Thank you so much for your time and
Thanks
for
for
your
having me.
knowledge.